The Jehovah's Witnesses are stuck, trapped by an organization that does not care about them. It claims to care about them, but it wants to take from ordinary Jehovah's Witnesses. The Watchtower wants to take their time, it wants to take their money, it wants to take their family, it wants to take their mind. Everything a person can have, Watchtower either wants or wants control over that. So, why am I making all of you guys super depressed? At this point, you're probably thinking this sounds a lot like a Sunday talk. And yes, I have stolen the old formula of bringing in the sad news. But I just wanted to set this up because I want to discuss questions that people can ask, people like me and you. No doubt you're watching this video because you have been affected by the Watchtower in some way, shape, or form. So, because you've been affected by it and no doubt have someone that you know personally and hopefully have some contact with that is a Jehovah's Witness that fully believes or maybe is having doubts or questions, this video is for you. If you're having questions or if you're wondering what can I say to potentially help. Now, can you say anything that's just going to be the magic bullet? Maybe in a few very rare cases this thing does exist, but it does not exist on a universal level. But why I've kind of written these questions out is because I get fearful that someone starts questioning their religious indoctrination and finds themselves right where they started because they left the Watchtower for the wrong reasons and now they're trapped in a mindset and they've repeated the cycle, but just taken one step to the left. So this is anti-one step to the left. This is about freedom, actually getting rid of these bad ideas, and just a few tactful, thought-out questions that can help people to evaluate what they believe and why they believe it. All right, everybody, we're going to do an experiment, okay? You're watching this video right now. I need you to get your hands ready, your fingers ready, whatever it might be. You're going to say, "Hey, Wally," and then you're going to say a 1 if you like the whole mustache separated from the beard, or a 2 if you don't like it. So, "Hey, Wally," and then either 1 or 2, and that way I know whether or not to keep it because it's a bit of work, or just go back to it being random and who knows what Wally will look like. Sometimes he shaves his head, sometimes he has hair, who knows what's going to happen. Anyway, with all that being said, let's do this darn thing. Oh wait, I didn't do the countdown. Okay, ready? You guys are all sitting there, have "Hey, Wally" 1 or 2 ready. Okay, ready? 1, 2, and 3. Oh, that was so scuffed. I amaze myself that my intros can continue to get worse and worse. It's almost a talent at this point. All right, I will try and be interlacing these questions not only with my thoughts, but my personal experience in talking with people and just telling you kind of how it went for me. So I guess you can report back and see how it went for you, or if you like any of these questions, or if you think they're stupid. I'm up for criticism. I'm a big man. I can take it. Anyway, the first thing seems properly simple, but it's a question that Jehovah's Witnesses don't really get asked honestly or have to explain. And that is, how do you know it's true? Oftentimes, a Jehovah's Witness that would be answering this question is going to be with someone they meet out in the field ministry. And it's going to be someone that's trying to indoctrinate that particular person. They're not trying to evaluate it and explain it to someone. So they'll say something like, "Well, I know it's true because in John it says that my people will have love amongst themselves and Jehovah's Witnesses are the only ones that won't go to war." It's something stupid like that. But if you ask someone this in like more of a private conversation, or like if a good family member or a friend, a good family member, I guess that suggests there are bad family members, but I hold that to be true and self-evident. But my brother, I had a conversation one time just when we were out in service, and it was in that weird period where I'm like, they're kind of like, what's going on with Wally? But I'm not. Anyway, you guys all know what it's like. Anyway, I had just asked him this very simple question. How do you know it's true? And his response was actually what I would say the goal. The goal of most of these questions is for them to just admit that they don't care about facts. They don't care about reason. They don't care about what's true. They only want the mattress. That is Watchtower. That comfy little mattress and pillow and their little blankie that they can just sleep good at night. And that's how it functions. But my brother, he said, it doesn't really matter whether or not it's true, because I know I'm living the best life ever. And if it is true, then I get everlasting life. And if it's not true, I still have lived a good life. So the old, Pascal's wager, if you will. I think this is one of the best responses that you can get. If someone can admit to you, I don't really care if it's true. I'm living a good life, I'm happy, and that's all I need. I think that's about as far as you can take someone through dialogue. After that, they have to want to wake up themselves to get anything past that point. I mean, maybe that's not entirely true in every case, but you guys know what I'm saying. I'm making a generalization, but generally speaking, one response that you might get, and that's the response I got when I asked this of my parents, and they said, well, you already know that it's true. And then it's just this whole thing of like, wait, I'm telling you, I don't. Yes, you do. I'm telling you I don't. Well, you know the reasons that we would give. No, I'm telling you I don't. I want you to explain them. So they wouldn't even take a second thought to try and work out their own misgivings or doubts, or give me a bit of information that was like, wow, okay, yeah, this prophecy is true. Because they knew whatever they brought up, I was just going to be able to rebut. So if the person that you're looking to talk to might have that mindset, you might not want to ask that, because then it's just going to be, the old satanic question, well, is it really so? And that's how they're going to see it. So if it depends on the person, right? I knew my brother, I knew the setting, I knew the situation. He would give me an answer. I asked it of my parents, kind of knowing what they would say, but I just wanted to complete the experiment and make sure that, I at least tried it. Anyway, that was their response. So maybe skip it in that case. Another good question is, what would it take to convince you that this is not the truth? This is interesting because I think it should generate some kind of response to the effect of, nothing would convince me that this is not the truth. But if you are dealing with someone that's fairly honest and open, maybe they would come out and tell you what it would take to convince them. So I asked this of my dad, and he said, nothing. Nothing would convince me. I'm like, okay, well, what if the governing body were found out that they were running a sex trafficking ring, and they were, pedophiles, and they were using your money in order to bring girls from Asia in shipping crates? What if you knew your donations were there? But that would never happen, Wally. Yes, I'm not saying that has happened. I'm not claiming that has happened. I'm just saying, would that convince you that the organization isn't giving you the truth? And he him and hawed and him and hawed and him and hawed.
To hum, and haw. Okay, these are just different sounds.
And eventually he's like, okay, well, I suppose that wouldn't shake my faith in Jehovah, but they are imperfect men after all. So I guess it wouldn't shake my faith that it's the truth, but those governing body members are false. Okay, well then that just kind of opens up at least the idea, at least the concept in someone's mind that, okay, there is some level that I won't believe this anymore, or at least I won't believe these people. So then you can shift away from the governing body and say, okay, well, what would it take to convince you that your beliefs in Jehovah or in your personal theology aren't true? Of course, the governing body are the gatekeepers to that theology, so those two things should go one-to-one, but anyway, we won't get into that. And this basically will be a painful one. They are not going to be able to come up with a scenario when thinking about this. And then I just like the approach that I took that left the old eyes wide looking around like, that's a good point, is are you doing this in any other aspects of your life where you're just all in 100% convinced that something could not be wrong, that it would take, a supernatural event or the fact that the leaders were running a sex trafficking scandal? That is the level that it would take for you to continue to pay your phone bill when there's a discrepancy in there. Oh, why did my phone bill go up by $30? And it just goes up by $30. And you just keep, well, they're not running a sex trafficking ring, so it must be right. No, you have a certain level of skepticism I don't know why I keep touching my face, that you have in your life that you operate under. So just the fact of exposing and isolating the fact that this is the only thing they keep that philosophy in, when everything else in their life, they at least have some measure of skepticism. One of my personal favorites is, could the organization do anything ever that wasn't directed by Jehovah? Now, this is a great question because the answer is yes. The answer is absolutely.
Yes. Yes. Yes!
And if they say, well, no, the organization couldn't do anything that wasn't directed by Jehovah, I don't think I need to school you or educate you on any follow-ups or things to say. Just go back through Watchtower's history and you can sit down there with whoever you're talking to and be like, okay, and every time they change their teachings, doesn't that mean that they were teaching something that wasn't directed by Jehovah? Now, once you have that established, an easy juxtaposition that you can maneuver is, well, how do you justify Watchtower's claims that you need to trust them no matter what? Even if it doesn't make sense, you can show them the 2013 Watchtower. Even if it doesn't make sense, make sure you follow our direction.
Cuckoo, cuckoo.
Okay, so I've admitted that they can do things that aren't directed by Jehovah. And I've also admitted that I will follow them no matter what. But didn't you say before that the governing body could be wrong, but you'd still put your trust in Jehovah? Well, how do you get to Jehovah? It's through the governing body, right? It's kind of problematic, and it's a pretty simple question to ask that, like, could the governing body ever do anything? Could the organization, not even the governing body, could the organization do anything that wasn't directed by Jehovah? Could they tell, a circuit overseer to go to a certain a place and his plane crashes? Could they tell, have a convention at this city and there's some sort of natural disaster and it's horrible for them and affects them? Nope. They're going to have to say yes to the question. And once they say yes to that, have them explain how they have this absolute binary 1-0s, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They are more sure of their belief in the organization than Helga Pataki's love for Hey Arnold. Or Arnold, I guess, the show's Hey Arnold. Like, they are so convinced of it. For any of you that don't get that reference, then I'm sorry. Another good question to ask is, has the Watchtower ever told Jehovah's Witnesses that the end would come in their lifetime? And do they currently feel that Armageddon will come in their lifetime? Well, the answer is just an absolute yes. And if they deny this, well, you can show them how throughout history, for over 100 years, each generation of Jehovah's Witnesses has been told and has thought that the end was coming in their life. And throughout every one of those generations, it's always failed. So what makes their generation so special? Because the generation before, do you know what they said? They said, no, they had it wrong, but now we have the real understanding. And the generation before that, they said, well, they have it wrong, but now I have the real understanding. So paint the picture and then just say, like, what makes this generation different? All of them have failed. We know it's a failed model. Is it really worth it? Like, it's not something you would do in your normal life. And if you did, I suggest that that person would need help. Imagine if someone had a partner that cheated on them regularly, and for years they keep taking this person back. I mean, I was going to say something like, imagine if it was 5 times that they got cheated on and they kept taking the person back. But I guess we won't throw too many jabs, but apparently you can get cheated on more than 5. I thought that was a high number when I was kind of writing this out, but with knowledge I have now, I guess we'll say, what if you got cheated on like 24 times and you just keep taking the person back? This time they're going to change. This time they're going to change. This time they're going to change. Like, come on. They're a scumbag. They're a loser. They're a piece of human trash.
What are you?
An idiot sandwich.
Maybe they can change in the future. That's up to them. But as everything I know, you've cheated on me 5 times, 20 times, 2 times, 3 times. I'm sorry, but I need you to demonstrate that you are going to, hold your promise. Do something that demonstrates to me that you've actually changed. What has Watchtower done to demonstrate that they've actually changed? They just keep trotting out new prophecies and new understandings and new like this. How have they demonstrated that they have changed it all? Well, the answer is simple. They can't. You can't, because they have to have the end always right around the corner. And that's a control mechanism. I know I'm getting a little bit sidetracked here, but why would someone continue to take the partner back over and over and over? And at a certain point, you got to say, okay, stop. I understand relationships can be complicated and there's a lot of factors, but at a certain point, we need to grow up a little bit, put our big boy panties on and stand up for ourselves. And that's what's happening to Watchtower. They are in a abusive relationship. They are absolutely in an abusive relationship where they feel they need Watchtower so much, but Watchtower doesn't really care about ordinary witnesses. They're just, if they need to shift the goalposts, they'll just do it willy-nilly style, just like the person that's going to cheat. They'll just cheat again willy-nilly style, knowing that, hey, if we move that goalpost, if I cheat again, they're just going to keep coming back. And is that the person you want to be? Is that the example you want to be for your children? Do they want to grow up and see their parent that's just like sticking it out and continuing just to get clobbered mentally, physically, and emotionally over and over and over again? No, stop. Stop. Time to put our big boy panties on. I don't know why I say big boy panties, but you know what? It put a smile on my face, and by golly, I'm sure it did on yours.
I put on my big boy pants. Look, I'm wearing a belt. I got big boy pants on.
Just like the phrase, by golly. Can we get an over-under? This will be the video where I fish for comments. Maybe we can get like 1,000 comments. Over-under on how long will the unicorn on ZZ's back make it to the end of the video? Don't forget to watch to the end of the video to find out. Next up, I have, if I could show you an example of the governing body lying or Watchtower intention. Wow. Oh, anyone that thought that... Well, I guess you can click off the video. It fell off. We were all wondering it. Here we are. But anyway, so if I could provide an example of the governing body lying or Watchtower misquoting someone in one of their magazines, would that at the very least affect your trust that they are being used by God? Would that have any effect on them whatsoever? And if the answer is, well, no, mistakes were made, they're imperfect people. Well, can you give me any reasonable explanation why a God of truth would use lies or misrepresentations in order to get people to believe in the real truth? Would God use lies to expose truth? Does the Jehovah, the God that they worship, would that God, that deity, ever accept someone lying on their behalf, and that was the best pathway to truth? How does that make any damn sense? Here's another good one that I asked my dad, and it was kind of resulted in an interesting conversation, because I asked him, had he taken the time to verify every Watchtower claim? And this came about because he was wondering why I was doing a study project that involved like going through some prophecy or something and actually looking at historical evidence for it. And he had asked me, well, why are you doing that? I'm like, well, I just thought that it would be important to, verify, like, obviously you've done that, right? And he's like, well, I did it, but, after a certain point, if someone is reliable and you start to trust them, then there's no reason to be skeptical of every single thing they say. So I was like, okay, I get that works in like a friendship scenario. Like if someone is always on time, I don't have any reason to think that they're going to be late, but they could still be late sometimes. But it's a different scaling system here when we're talking about supernatural claims where my life is involved. That to me is something that, yeah, I think I might want to verify each and every one. But it's an interesting question because it might make someone realize that they don't actually know what they believe. I'm kind of a believer that most active Jehovah's Witnesses couldn't really explain the things that most ex-witnesses could about their own belief system, not regarding like any scandals or anything like that, but just with regard to the doctrine and the religion. I feel like more ex-witnesses would be capable of explaining it than actual witnesses, because I know I could go talk to any Jehovah's Witness, I think, on the planet, and I am pretty confident that I know their doctrine more than them. I maybe get me in front of like a governing body member, but I don't think they actually know that much. But anyway, it would just expose how little effort they've put in to knowing this thing that has been established they believe in 100%, or at least the 99%. And when they realize, wait, I do believe this thing, but I don't actually understand it, that can be kind of powerful. And if they say they have verified every claim, then just toss them one to verify. Take your pick. What did Charles Taze Russell say in 1914? There you go, bud. What did Rutherford say what happened in 1920? There you go, bud. Like, here's a claim. The flood of Noah's day. Prove it. You said you took time to verify it. You know it's true. Convince me. Show me. Show me that the entire world was encapsulated with over a mile of water. Oh, boy. These are fun. I'm having fun. Are you having fun? I hope so. That's why we're here. Here's another fun one. Have you ever disagreed with something the organization has taught? Now, this is a very person-specific one because I think we all know the type of person, and we all know people that are a little bit more outspoken and disagreeing with Watchtower. But most people, I would say, have had at some point a doubt. It's nearly impossible that you could be in the organization for years and decades and never, ever have a doubt that pops in your head or something you're like, wait, that doesn't make sense. And if they say, no, I've never disagreed with Watchtower, then I guess you're dealing with someone that's just a follower going with the sheep. Not the type of question you would ask them anyway. But the interesting aspect with this is if someone is willing to disagree with Watchtower, did you stick with it? Did you wait on Jehovah, as it were? Well, yeah. Okay. Now you have a disagreement with me. I think this is obviously farther along in the process if you are someone that's already on the way out of the organization, and that's obvious and clear. But anyway, but you have a disagreement with me. Are you willing to wait on me? Are you willing to wait on Jehovah? Are you willing to wait, or are you going to just shun me? So you disagree with Watchtower. You're patient. You wait for them. You disagree with me. Bang. I'm cut out of your life, and it's as if I were dead. Does that seem balanced? Does that seem balanced to you that an organization can demand and attain that level of respect in your mind that there's nothing that they could basically do that would drive you away from them? And yet all I'm doing is saying, hey, I have a thought in my head. You have a thought in your head. These two thoughts are different. My favorite color is blue. Your favorite color is red. For that crime, for that level of extraordinary malfeasance, you are willing to pretend that I'm dead. First off, anyone willing to do that, maybe they're really not even worth your time. But it is a little bit different because people are being told to shun. They're not just doing it willy-nilly style. Here's a more interesting one for your more liberal-minded audience. And that would be, if the governing body asks Jehovah's Witnesses to do something, will they do it? Well, yes, they literally have to. What if Jehovah's Witnesses ask the governing body to do something? And do they think a God of love would approve of such a despotic, top-down organization where imperfect men that have been wrong in the past, demonstrably, that can change the doctrine at any point in time, can change the words in the Bible itself? Again, imperfect, not inspired men. Could a God of love use them? Would a God of love use them? Well, God's using imperfect people to, because they're human and they're relatable and they're people just like us and it's easier. That's a bunch of malarkey. If I'm telling you right now, if a person comes and says the end is nigh, I'll be like, whatever, dude. If I see like the heavens open up and Jesus comes in on a horse and whisks me up in there, I mean, first I'll be like, wow, what kind of drugs am I on? But I mean, if you could verify this and it happened with a sufficient, all of that good qualifying stuff. If it could be shown, like, that would be so much more powerful. But anyway, if Jehovah's Witnesses get together in a petition in some sort of democratic way and say, hey, we want this blood law changed. We've examined the Bible, we've looked at the verses, we've looked at the history, and we think that this is something that applies to food, not to a medical procedure. If a 90% of Jehovah's Witnesses all wrote to the governing body and said, we want this change, what would happen? We'd have 90% of Jehovah's Witnesses talking to elders, because they would need to make sure that they were being kept in line. So I just think it's kind of a fascinating thing when you don't really think about it, because they're talked about and they're thought of as these fellow workers in Christ. We're just fellow workers, humble, imperfect men, just doing the best that we can. But when you actually break it down in terms of like something that huge, like 90% of witnesses actively writing letters because they're so concerned about an issue, what would the governing body do? Nothing. Butt kiss. It's only on their time. So I don't see a God of love that would approve of that sort of behavior. And if he does, then I guess God help us all. Okay, the next question is similar to a point I was making before, but we'll try and make it a little bit more direct this time. Would a God of truth use lies as a pathway to that truth? So a great example of this is the generation teaching. So the generation teaching was... Okay, that happened. The generation teaching was, this applies to people that, witnessed the sign of 1914. And then, conveniently, because that promise that was made to generations of Jehovah's Witnesses expired. It was like, well, sorry, it can't be that generation because they're all dead now. Okie dokie. Well, let's say that it's applying to these wicked people. Okay, so you apply it to the wicked people conveniently until you come up with this weird double generation overlapping nonsense, right? We know the foolishness with it. So you went from the generation that witnessed the sign to not that generation to back to the generation that witnessed the sign, but like 2.0 version of that. That would be an example of a God of truth using not truth. If you don't like the word lie, if it makes you uncomfortable, fine. Using not truth to get to truth. A God of truth using not truth to get to truth. I'm sure in post there'll just be a million different truths and untruths and question marks happening around, but whoosh, they're all gone now. So why would a Jehovah's Witness sit back and every day of their lives call this organization the truth? It's still, some of us even have that little slip up when we say, oh yeah, when I was in the truth, or refer to it. We've all slipped up and had that moment before, right? So it's that much in the common vernacular of Jehovah's Witness. But there's been times when it's been the untruth, the not truth, the lie. Are you cool with that? Because the God you worship is purported to be a God of truth. Good question. So with all of that being said, imagine it being like someone having car problems. So they consult their owner's manual, and their owner's manual tells them to do something and it never works. And it tells them to do something else and it doesn't work. So they take it to a mechanic and they say, well, first off, you're using the wrong gosh darn owner's manual. Like you're using the wrong ones. And they show you and like, hey, I'm here to like demonstrate to you that you're just not using this is for a 02 Maxima and you drive a Corolla. What if that person just said, no, you're wrong, I'm right, and kept going around to different mechanics until one finally agreed, just to scam them and take their money? And like, see, now it's 2022 and I am validated and you finally agree with me. So they go and they use this mechanic and he does something that the owner's manual says, and the whole engine blows up, the car is a brick, you can't even use it, nothing left, you got to sell it for parts. Would you then go back to whoever sold you the car, would you go back to that same way of thinking? No, you wouldn't bring that old owner's manual into the next car you bought It's so goofy to me that despite all of the issues and all of the problems that Watchtower has with just being exposed for being wrong, and even coming out with their new light doctrines and saying themselves, our previous understanding was just wrong. Despite all of that, they still want to claim that their owner's manual is the right one. Despite how many times it's failed, despite this generation teaching where the car is literally just blown up, the promise expired, and just saying, no, it's still right. She's gonna keep on purring. It's so dumb. Okay, well, with all of that, we are at the end of the road. Here are some questions for you to think about with regard to talking to people that might still be in the organization, and more importantly, questions that are just important to ask yourself in everyday life, because it is possible, and I hope this statement isn't correct, but I'm going to make it anyway, and you are more likely to land yourself in another organization or thought process that leads you to not truth. If you don't leave the organization for the right reasons, and you haven't actually thought about it, you've just heard a scandal, gotten upset, and now you're an apostate, but you didn't take the time to do the hard work and really think your way out of the organization, you might run into some problems of just working your way right back into another cult-like or abusive organization. And we don't want that. We will not stand for that. We will not stand for abuse. We will not stand for nonsense. We are here on the side of equality and reason, and for people being treated like human beings. That's what they are. Anyway, with all of that being said, thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. Don't forget to drop a like on the video if you haven't. I'm sure you already have. And bye. Maybe that's the new thing. We'll just wave. Bye. I know the wicked stunts was like a thing for a bit, but it was hard to do that, and I kept forgetting to buy hot peppers, and honestly, they were really hot, and I didn't enjoy that at all. Fancy water with raspberries and blueberries and strawberries, all for your delectable yet slightly sweet tangy pleasure.